Mill, moaned at for being too critical, whined at for not being critical enough. Sound familiar?
Yeah, I had it actually in one day. the season earlier on, I had people saying it one evening actually. Yeah, funny, isn't it? I don't know which one I am, but there you go.
It seems you're walking a perpetual sort of tightrope. Is that how you see your job?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny, obviously when the times at Kenny Jackett's under pressure, we get moaned at for not wanting him sacked. I've been called a snowflake before and, you know, useless journalist and all sorts because somebody wants Kenny Jackett and I'm not giving my opinion. And they sort of want the news to stand up and run a campaign to get rid of a manager. But that doesn't happen in papers, especially regional papers. Regional papers don't run campaigns to get rid of managers. I know the Birmingham Mail did it many years ago when Paul Lambert was there, but it's unheard of. It does not happen. Mike Neeson never did it. Mark Story never did it. So if you've got a manager under pressure, we are not going to launch a campaign to get in the sack. Call us snowflakes, call us gutless, call us not backing the fans or whatever it is. You've got your opinions. We don't get involved in that sort of thing. It doesn't happen. And as we are at the moment, middle of December, thank goodness we didn't launch a campaign as the news to get the manager sacked. Because how would we now say to the manager, oh, we wanted you sacked now, but you did a great job now, can we be friends? It doesn't work. And again, we were talking about this in the car the other night. It's important that we do try to stay in the middle, really.
Yeah.
And not get involved in managers' futures and things, because if it's turned around, what do you do then? And again, I go back to Paul Cook. A lot of fans wanting him sacked. A lot, after Crewe. Imagine if we'd, next day, sack Paul Cook, get rid of him. We all know how that season ended, didn't we? You know, you can't get involved in that.
It's not in your interest to do so, is it? That's there be the tightrope that you have to keep some harmony with the club.
Yeah, and there's been plenty of managers over the years. I've been delighted to see sacked, both because both I didn't like them, they were useless. I didn't like them, and they were useless. And then so there's times you think a manager has to be sacked. It's not a problem, but we're not going to go out and trumpet it and say he must go. You can't do that. There's things we say in private to people that we trust, and you talk about things, but when we write things, it doesn't mean we always believe in it. When we write that Paul Hart says that Pompey are going to be brilliant this year and they're going to be fine in the Premier League, it doesn't mean we believe in it. But sometimes you have to repeat what you're told from the football club. When Diego Maradona was meant to be coming here as president or whatever under Al Fahim, we didn't believe it, but you write about it. That's what it is.
Go on then, who didn't you like and who was useless?
Paul Hart, dear me. Terrible man, dear me, Paul Hart. No, I mean, I will go to Paul Hart, but first of all, I think it's in life, if people treat you badly, if people take a metaphorical punch at you, if people are aggressive to you and antagonistic to you, if people try to you, you're not going to take that. I don't care who you are. So if a manager goes for you, again, metaphorically goes for you, why should you take that? And you shouldn't, should you? Why? Why would anyone in any walk of life take that?
I'll tell you what, you'd have a great time with the Crawley manager, wouldn't you?
Oh, blimey, yeah. Well, exactly. You shouldn't have to take, nobody, especially in this city, you know, if somebody has a go at you or something, you defend yourself. And if somebody wants to cause trouble for you, you remember that. So it's a basic thing in journalism. If you're a manager, treat the local press decent. I say decent, respectful, you know, because they will look after you, they will respect you. We will. We're extremely loyal people. But if you're going to go for them from the start and be antagonistic towards them, you ain't got any friends there, I'm afraid. No. The same with chief executives. I suppose we'll get to chief executives soon as well. The same with former owners who tried to sue me over the 2010 FA Cup final report. After that, I'm sorry, mate. I'm not going to be supporting you or backing you or in favour of you. You've all got enough of people in the press that are doing that at the moment, not the news. So there's things like that. If you want to treat people with decency, brilliant. But if you're not, we're not going to really look on you very favourably. And I mean, again, I'll sort of go back to Kenny Jackett. Kenny Jackett, an absolute gentleman, a real pro, treats us with respect. During lockdown, he would bring us up every week to talk Pompey and the season. He's absolutely fantastic to deal with, Kenny Jackett. And he's got our respect, without any doubt. You can have your opinions on him as a manager, on his tactics, on his signings, not a problem. But he's a decent human being. And there are things in the book that's coming out now that detail that, and perhaps we'll go into later on. But he's a really decent person, and we respect him. But if he'd gone from us from the start, you know, although we wouldn't have put out sack him, it controls how you perceive people, isn't it? How you behave towards people. It's life, isn't it?
It's an interesting point. So, who needs who most? Does the club need the paper? Does the paper need the club, or does it work in harmony?
Both. You know, I always remember. I always remember David Lampert. Not my favourite.
Hard to forget.
Yeah, it's not my favourite chief executive, but I'll never forget the time. And he was incredibly plausible when you met him. Very, very plausible. Looked right, said the right things. Excellent background. Actually, sorry, an outstanding background. And you thought, good, he's going to sort this club out. And I remember a few months into the job, he appeared on Express FM, and he had a go at me over something I'd written. I wasn't in the studio, but he had a go, and he complained something I'd written were numbers plucked from the air, and he said that I misquoted Steve Cottrell over him complaining about a game being snowed off and things like that. Now, what annoyed me was the figures he complained about were actually in the administration report, and were figures that Barclays basically paid the club a proportion of season ticket money every time the club fulfilled a game. So it's a fact. He claimed this was plucked out of the air and made up. He claimed Cottrell was misquoted. I rang Steve Cottrell straight away. Cottrell was fuming that Lampert said it. He said, you misquoted him at all. Complete rubbish. I don't know why he said that. So early on, you've got the chief executive's gone on there, and he's lied to try to get me in trouble, to deflect something. And straight away, that's his first shot at me. That's it. From that point, game over. Because that's the sort of person you're dealing with, and it's hard to get that back. Again, it's the old playground mantra. He started it. And from that point, I remember that night he was ringing me up. I sent him a message, having a moan. And that night he wanted to ring me up to apologise. I just ignored it because, you know, if you're going to play those sort of games, you need each other. You need to work together. And the first time I met Mark Catlin, he took me aside, and it was in celebrations after the High Court. And we were at that pub, and he took me aside and he goes, "Oh, Neil, I'm going to be the new chief executive, hope we can work together." And I said, as long as you don't lie like your predecessor, we'll get on just fine. And he's been brilliant. He has. And again, it's how people treat you. You need each other. I mean, you know, both sides are saying, you know, the club needs the press. The club don't need the press. And we were told that once. I always remember me and Howard Frost were sat in the old offices with Gary Double. Pompey just won the FA Cup, and he said to us, "The club doesn't need the press anymore. We don't need you at all." And we're like, "Wow." He goes, "Yeah, we don't need you. Feel free to take articles from our magazines. You can use them if you want. We don't need you. We won't give you people." And of course, you know, well, we still kept following the club. We took shares in the club, all sorts. So, you know, we're still around and hopefully contributed a little bit towards Pompey surviving with our publicity and getting involved in that. But yeah, it is difficult trying to stay in the middle, because I mean the greatest myth of all, people say they love bad news, they love writing bad news. Wait a minute, I've been here 20 years. My favourite memories: Cheltenham, Notts County away, Spurs in the FA Cup, the FA Cup final, AC Milan. nothing negative there, is there? We hate the negative stuff. Hate it. Watching our winning side not go without a win for 22 games. I think they won on the 23rd. That's not great. That's not enjoyable. We despise the horrible low points. They're not fun. Fun's going watching Paul Cook's team win. Fun's going to the Checker Trade Trophy final. Seeing 40,000 Pompey fans there, including my son in the crowd for the first time at Wembley. That's enjoyable. It's not enjoyable losing Pompey. Seeing Pompey lose to Crewe ahead of the great run in that promotion season. The best parts of covering a football club is wins and success. And anyone who says that we appreciate the negative side of it all, it's talking absolute nonsense. Because a team doing well, a team successful, is better than getting relegated in successive seasons.
It would be thoroughly dull, wouldn't it? Sort of covering a team that stays in sort of League One or League Two, or alternates between the two. You've had administrations, cup finals, played in every division. That's real reporting, isn't it?
It is. Some clubs are a bit dull, aren't they, really? But never Pompey. And I mentioned Cheltenham's my favourite game. And, bearing in mind I've seen a fair few quality moments. But for me, Cheltenham was a highlight because it was just the start. We'd watched Pompey plummet through the leagues. We watched administrations. We watched these characters in charge of the football club. We've seen the team plummet, the club plummet. And Cheltenham was that wonderful romantic day, wasn't it? Where nobody thought Pompey would win the title that day. They didn't, did they? Nobody thought it. And then to win it like that, top of the league, the 32 minutes all season. And results went elsewhere. And at Fratton Park and all the fans came on the pitch. It was such an emotional day for everyone, wasn't it? I remember me and Bunky in the press box just hugging. It's an amazing day. I get a bit emotional thinking about it now, actually, because we were there for the horrible, horrible moments, the High Court and things like that. And that moment, that was just perfection, wasn't it, that day? And I think only Pompey fans could appreciate that and understand that, because it was a big, big day. And afterwards, there was a party going on, wasn't there? I think it was a staff party, wasn't it? Or
well, it was a come-all party in the end, I think.
Yeah, and it was in here.
Yeah.
And it was just amazing because I think the coaching staff were in here as well, and it was like a celebration party as well. And it was just a special, special weekend. And I remember going to the Shepherd's Crook that night. Me and Jordan went up, actually. And there were people there I knew. And they were buying us drinks, and I will never forget it. There were fireworks going off in the background. No idea why. I'm sure it had nothing to do with the achievement that day. There were fireworks going off. And then We Are the Champions came on, on the jukebox or TV, and all the Pompey fans were on the tables singing it. Just special, absolutely special moments. And that's what it means to any of us, me, Jordan, Will, Mark, they are the moments you want to see, the moments of elation, not moments where you sat in this same room talking about the club being liquidated in front of administrators. They're the points. And hopefully you get the idea of that I'm an Nuneaton lad, Aston Villa's my team, Warwickshire's my cricket team, and they will remain always so. But you come to this area and it gets you, the football club gets you. And when you go through the play that Pompey's have done, and also the latest book, characters like this, and you chat to them, and many of them aren't even from the area, and it gets you, it really does, and it's such a special, special place.
Before we come on to the books, let's talk about, not only do you have to keep on the side of the club, you have to keep on the side of players, and I suppose given the marks for each performance, again, is a tightrope existence.
What, football ratings?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a funny one. David Wheeler rang me up a couple of years ago. I gave him a 4 at Oxford. And
so they read them?
Yeah. He asked Ash Emberson at the club if he could get in touch with me to speak to me about the ratings. And he rang me up, and he was very eloquent, and we talked about it, and he was right. It was his debut, and it was at Oxford, and I had marked him too low. So I sort of said, in fairness, yeah, I did make a mistake there. The trouble is with ratings these days, you have to follow them on the whistle. So you don't get a chance to sit back and sort of like, okay, right, let's think about this logically. Let's just not get swept away in the moment. So they often can be a bit inaccurate. That day I was completely accurate. I marked him too low and I apologised. And then when I watched highlights, I realised I marked Jack Watmore was given too high a mark, and I told Jack as well afterwards. So there's no fine science. For example, if Pompey get a 1-0 win at Bolton, not convincing, you're not going to give players 4s and 5s. They've won a game. You're not going to mark players down for winning games, are you? And things like that. I remember Jed Wallace once texted me complaining that I marked him too high. But that's Jed, isn't it? That's very honest Jed, isn't it? And I remember sometimes my ratings when emailed into the paper appeared in the paper incorrect, which annoyed Carl Baker and Sonny Bradley. And I actually had to send them my original email saying, look, honestly, I didn't give you a 6, it's a 7. And if you look at the comment, the comment's a bit better than a 6. Honestly, this is. But people moan about me about the ratings all the time. But again, it's trying to be balanced.
Is it better not to have them at all, because it's a personal opinion, really, isn't it?
Yeah. And so I always remember that many years ago when we had comments under the web section, I've kept one. I've photographed it. And it was having a pop of us saying, "Oh, you lot know nothing. Jed Wallace is a non-league player. Adam Webster will never make it." It's an opinion, and he didn't like me giving them good ratings in the game. I think I've got a better opinion than that character. If he thought those two were useless, wonder where they are now. So. With ratings, I'm not really fussed about ratings. About people moaning about ratings. People moan, that's it, about ratings. But sometimes you've got to give credit to players doing well. Sometimes you haven't.
Has there ever been a moment or a day where you've held back because you've sort of thought about the stick you might get, or do you relish that?
What held back of a performance?
Any aspect? Not
really. I mean, the famous one was Paul Hart when I called him a dead man walking, didn't I? And I got banned and knife from the club. I'll start with that one. Perhaps I shouldn't have called him a dead man walking. And I remember speaking to Mark Story, who was working at the club at the time. Perhaps it was a bit of a blunt phrase I shouldn't have used, but the message was still the same. Pompey had drawn 0-0 at Hull. Avram Grant was sat in the crowd with these characters about to come into the club. It was obvious. Avram Grant was out of his job. It was obvious. Pompey was struggling really badly. I think it was their worst start to a Premier League season. Bottom of the table, financial problems. Paul Hart was going to go. Avram Grant's there. And I remember, I think Pompey had a game on the Tuesday night. So the Monday after that, my match report, we went to the press conference at Eastleigh. And as we walked in, we were told to stand outside, and I saw Gary Double, the press officer, who had the match report open. And he's next to Paul Hart, and there's pointing and prodding, and then they came out and asked to see me in Paul Hart's office, and they ripped into me. Disrespectful, they called me. Not a nice human being, And I was just saying, look, I appreciate that this is not a good time for you. This is really hard that you're dealing with these characters. No one understands the toughness of dealing with the characters more than me. Al Fahim was there at the time. We all knew what he was. But this is football, and they were fuming. And Hart was really giving me it. And I got escorted off the premises. And I got banned. And I wasn't allowed on the training ground. I wasn't allowed at the football ground. On Saturdays, I had to borrow a friend's season ticket and wear a baseball cap. And I think it was like 3 weeks later, Paul Hart got the sack, and who came in? Avram Grant. So I was right. I was still banned from the press conference and violating Avram Grant as manager, despite correctly saying that was going to happen. And I had to watch that on Sky. And I'll never forget, after 46 days, around this time of year actually, I met Gary Double in the B&Q Cafe. So not far from Fratton Park, so a neutral venue. And we sort of talked, and the ban was lifted. And as I left, it was Christmas, and they were playing John Lennon's War Is Over song as I left the B&Q. I just remember smiling and thinking,
Did they put it on especially for you?
No, this is Pompey. The war is over. But it was just, and that all came from a match report. So again, you have to be careful sometimes in match reports. Perhaps I shouldn't use dead man walking, but that was the phrase. And at the end of it, I got 2 awards for that. So cheers, Paul Hart.
Yeah. What about the awards? They must be satisfying.
Oh yeah, tremendous. Yeah, I think.
How many?
I'm fortunate really because they're just stories, aren't they? There's stories around here. People like Big Kev. For years he's been on me to do a book. I'll write too many, Kev. And it was just lovely to sit down with him and get his stories, and that was one of the things I wanted for. And sometimes in our job, we're extremely fortunate to be given an occasion to sit down with a player, a manager, or whatever, or a normal person. And it was a pre-season tour. I remember sitting down with Dion Donahue for the Pompey Mag, and suddenly he just wanted to talk, and he just talked about how his wife and child nearly died in childbirth, and he just wanted to talk about it. And you think, wow, and you listen. I think interviews are dying art these days because you just listen. You're listening, you're letting me talk. Just let them talk. So Dion Donahue's telling me all about what's happened to him in a traumatic time in hospital. Just listen. Chip in, ask him little things, but listen. I've seen journalists, big long list of questions, they'll read verbatim off the questions in front of the manager. Well, have them as guides, but just listen. Ask them to expand on a question. Then more will come out. Some journalists, I'm afraid, would have, when Dion sort of mentioned about his horrible childbirth for his wife and they nearly died, would have just moved on. And that's just stories everywhere, aren't there? And I've been very fortunate in that respect, and that people trust me as well to tell their stories. And it's sometimes football can be boring, right? About football, let's be honest. The cliches, especially in the Premier League. I think on the way in, I remember hearing Alistair Cook on TalkSport 2 backing Joe Root to win the Ashes in Australia, and you think, does he mean that? He's just being polite, isn't it?
Yeah. And
their stories are a bit dull, aren't they? Because you've got to say it. You've got to say, we will win tomorrow, we will win next week. But the most interesting stories are when you get under the skin, getting proper people. The Jack Watmore one that I done for the new book, which I've been sat on that since September 2019. Out of respect for Jack and the agreement, I never wrote a word about it until it appeared in the book. And it was just, Jack came to speak to me for a chapter for the book. And poured his heart out, and it turned out I was the only person he spoke to about the issue, about drinking, gambling, sporting chance. I was the first person he spoke to outside his family in the football club. And he just wanted to talk, and they're the best moments you get, because it's great to just talk people and no cliches.
Are players like that, the more honest ones that want to pull their heart out, do you find them lower down the league rather than higher up?
Yeah, I think you do. Until they retire, of course. But yeah, you do. You do. And also, it's about control from press officers and things like that. So Jack wouldn't have said that to me with a press officer there. Dion Donahue wouldn't have said that to me with a press officer there. It's the freedom to do that, isn't it? And as a paper, we do involve the club as well. So if they do say something to us, I will give Neil a ring, Neil Weld, club's media manager, and say, they've told me this, I'm looking to do a story in that. So that's how you work. I mean, we're back to the start about how you work together. Just let you know we've got this, and so he can, look into it as well.
One would think since the coming of Trevor Birch, you've had this harmonious relationship has been 7 or 8, maybe longer years. Yeah.
I think we're fortunate in a way that Lampett was terrible for the News to work with. I can go into so many instances, and I know for a fact that he wasn't very popular among club staff as well. In fact, barely anyone liked David Lampett. And I always felt that because of the club where it had been, and where it was then, he couldn't ban us or do anything. I always felt that we were a bit untouchable at that point because there's nothing he could do about it because it would reflect badly on him, and he was very much about public perception. So I would say even from him, where he came in, so what's that, 2010 probably? So it's changed. It really has changed. And obviously Chamrai came back, didn't he? But again, he couldn't get. Well, I mean, if I go back to the match report of the 2010 Cup final, and I've got a point here, but I basically wrote an angry match report saying, you guys tried to destroy the football club. It's still here. Proud day at Wembley 2010. What really irritated, two things irritated me: Chamrai in the Royal Box, despite not being an owner, despite the club being in administration, and his son among the mascots. I found that incredibly galling. I thought it was an insult to the Pompey fans. Disgusting, I thought it was. And I mentioned things like that in the match report. Chamrai's lawyers sent us a letter saying they're going to initiate legal proceedings. So people are running around quite panicked then. The match report was taken off the web. So from that point, we got Chamrai on our back. And because that happened, as the news, we couldn't get involved in criticising him too much because he was initiating legal action. But it was very clever. He left the threat of legal action there for a year without actually doing anything about it. So we were stuck, really. The only time we could really come out and blast him was on Express FM. So he had a bit of control over us at that point. But then when he went, I think you've seen the eras, the trust, the Eisners, and Mark Catlin as chief executive. The club's been a far nicer place to deal with, and you can say things, and there's no repercussions as such like that.
You've just released your fourth book on all things Pompey, all players and staff and all the rest of it. Where did that idea come from?
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously I've done the Played at Pompey series, and I've done enough of those. As I say, I've done 3 of those books. Then in May 2019, a publisher rang me up and said, we'd like you to write a book on Pompey season. I think the perception was that it could be a promotion season for Pompey. So, yeah, I mean, obviously it didn't turn out that way, but that's football. Again, there's not many things don't end up perfectly. The Cheltenham day was perfect. Again, last day of ownership, fan ownership as well, wasn't it, that day? That was a perfect day. But it doesn't happen in football. Perfect endings do not happen. And so the book wasn't quite a promotion-winning book. I know that somebody did Wickham, and he covered them through the season, and that ended up being promotion. But he wouldn't have expected that. I was asked to cover the club for a season. And Mark Catlin was all in favour of it. He put it to the Eisners, and they were in favour of it. And I was given complete access to the club behind the scenes. Basically, I could interview anyone I liked. So hence I spoke to you, of course, and many people at the football club, from Rog at the training ground, to Abdul, to Ash and Debbie in the office, John Jenkins. There's so many characters in there, and that's what makes this a real special football club. The characters in there, Big Kev, Barry, yourself, Johnny, all these characters here have been here many, many years. And one of my favourite stories in the book was Mick Hogan. Mick was a press steward, and he used to do taxiing for the club, and he used to ferry around Al Fahim sometimes. Mick was always a bit wary of Al Fahim because when he picked him up from the airport, he looked at his bags, and his bags were torn with tape all around them, battered and bruised and ripped. And Mick would look at them thinking, this guy's a billionaire, isn't he? Why are his bags ripped and torn? And he always had a little doubt. And there's a story anyway, my favourite story in it is Mick was going to pick him up from his hotel somewhere. And the nice, I think it was Mercedes C-Class or something, the one they used, it was being used by somebody else. and he couldn't get the keys. So Mick had to use his taxi, his sort of London taxi with a for hire thing on the top. So he had to go to the hotel, pick up Al Fahim. But firstly, Al Fahim had some guests, and Mick was going, look, we need to go, traffic. Oh, I want breakfast. No, I want breakfast first. And Mick's getting, come on, look, we need to go. Oh, I want breakfast. So they had breakfast, and Mick's like really worried now. He's thinking of the traffic. Oh, what do we do here now? So in the end, Al Fahim came out, appalled at the taxi for a start. Furious, what's this? I want a C-Class Mercedes. You give me this taxi for hire. 6-seater taxi, you know. So he's in there chuntering away. Anyway, whatever way Mick goes, there's traffic jams. Everywhere he goes, he's like, oh no, he's going to miss his plane. He's going to miss his plane. So they pull up outside, because Al Fahim's going to Dubai. They pull up outside the airport, run inside. I say run, Al Fahim sort of waddled apparently. Mick had all the bags, of course. So Mick's dragging the bags behind him. They went up to the desk. No, sorry sir, close, the flight's about to leave. He's like, no, don't you know who I am? I've got to go back to Dubai for a chess tournament or whatever he's doing. No, you can't come in. Oh, and you know, there's an argument going on. And Mick's thinking, well, you're late, what can you do? And they said, oh, Mr. Al Fahim, can we just check your full name, please? And he gave him his full name, Suleiman Al Fahim. And they looked at the list. Sir, your flight's tomorrow. Al Fahim just walked off without saying a word. And Mick had to drive him back to his hotel. And Mick just said, it just summed him up, really. Because he was a buffoon, wasn't he? He really was a buffoon.
Mick Hogan didn't tell him a joke or two, did he? To just lighten the mood even more.
No, but again, these are the little insights you get into. Like Roger at the training ground, Roger McFarlane, he spent in the training ground for years, Roger, hasn't he? And in the Premier League years, Yunus Gabor used to get him to walk his dog during training. And Pink Lead, this little dog, him and Keith would walk it around Eastleigh. One time he had to change, he had to change Papa Bouba's tyre. Papa Bouba came in and said, oh, I've got a flat tyre, can you sort it out for me? This is a steward at a training ground. The players expected him to do stuff, but they're the little things at the club that people don't see and appreciate, I suppose.
You've interviewed a lot of former players. Do you find that the shackles have come off and they've returned to the human race once they became former players?
Yeah, a lot of them are all right. I mean, the only horrible players that come up, I was never a fan of Defoe, particularly the way he left. Disgusting the way he left.
I suppose he's still a present player. We talked about the real performance.
I mean, Defoe, Ben Aim goes without saying, you know, most loads of individuals I ever came across here. There's not many players that are bad to deal with. Glenn Johnson, which it irks me because Glenn Johnson refused to do press. It really annoyed the press officers. The press stewards, Mick Hogan and Mark Hogan, that Glenn Johnson, I don't like doing press, I don't want to do press. And now he's earning a living from doing the press, which irritates me a little bit. So we never really got to speak to him. But there weren't many bad ones, in fairness. But again, when you do things like the Played at Pompey books, they're finished playing.
Yeah, exactly.
So they can say, what happened? Michael Doyle, what happened with you and Burgess? And he'll tell you. Although Burgess is in the current book, who talks about it as well. And people, I think years go by, people can say these things.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of doing these books, because I've been here so long, you finally get to know what really happened in these little incidents. And I've done it a few times recently with Shaka Hislop. How bad was Chalky Ass? There's a question. Surely most people, if they met Hislop, they would ask that question. How bad was Chalky Ass? And I spoke to Jamie Ashton about it the other week. And again, he just hammered him. And it's just fascinating to finally find out what happened.
And I bet there's no former player that makes you wait while he has a 4-hour massage either.
Sol Campbell's agreed to do the book, actually, but I didn't have a chance to do it, in fairness. But yeah, I love doing those books because players are honest, they're open, and they give you their time. The first interview I ever got for the Played at Pompey series was Robert Prosnecki. I was very lucky. I just found his agent on the internet, emailed him, and Prosnecki agreed to do it. So straight away you're thinking, wow, what I first wanted to kick it off, Robert Prosnecki. And I quickly got Distan, Mersum, and then I got a couple of awkward players. And I thought, do you know what? If you don't want to do it, I don't care. Mm-hmm. I've got people here that have done it properly, bigger names in fairness. You know, you do it and you have to do it properly. And I say properly, I mean a long phone call, a long face-to-face meeting, not email questions or Glenn Johnson at Stoke said he'd give me 15 minutes before training. 15 minutes? Nah, forget it. Don't need you. Clear off. You know, so the book, Richard Hughes, for the last book, I spent 3 hours around his house. 3 hours. And then I had to leave and pick up my kids from school. So, you know, Nico Cranchar, an hour and a half on the phone. You know, and you find the players have got so much respect for the club. Nico Cranchar, you know, one of the greats of the Premier League. What a player he was. FA Cup winner. He preferred Pompey to Spurs. So things like that, and most players don't want to leave the club. You always find that. Well, not Nico, but most players didn't want to leave the club. Distan was really good and loved it as well. And so you find their love and attachment for the club shines through. Because I remember they had the launch for Played at Pompey 2. Dejan Stefanovic came over from Croatia to be there for a launch. You know, what a great guy Dejan Stefanovic is. So, like I always say, if someone's going to mess me around, I'm not interested. And honestly, everyone in those 3 books has given me their time. They've done it properly. They've answered questions, and they've given me and this football club respect. And hopefully, it makes a decent, enlightening read. And
no one should underestimate the work it takes and the travel it takes as well.
Yeah, exactly. I went up on Friday, didn't I, to see Conor Chaplin and Gareth Evans to sign some books, and it is. But I always love meeting the old players because they always, like Michael Doyle, I met in September to sign 150 copies of Played at Pompey 3, and I was allowed into his kitchen at that point. We just sat there chatting Pompey for 2 hours. You know, he's got that massive affinity for the football club. And it's not put on because they've left, years gone by, but they do have that affinity.
Right, one final question, 2 final questions in fact. Do you ever get the inkling to test yourself in the waters of the national newspapers?
Well, if they would have me. But the thing I love about doing a football club is I just love the day-to-day feel of it. Yeah, the Nationals, they go from club to club. So if you upset Paul Hart, it doesn't matter. You go to another club, cover them. You know, I do love the community side of the football club, being involved in it, seeing it day to day. What really became apparent to me was during the trusts trying to take the football club over and the bad times, there were people disagreeing in the press room. You know, I know there was fans were fighting for the football club. The media room wasn't that great either because people had different opinions, and I did the way I saw it. Those that weren't part of the Pompey bubble, that didn't live in the area, didn't quite understand the politics. They didn't understand what was going on at the football club. Instead, they were relying on people to tell them what was going on at the football club, which is bad journalism. You've got to listen, speak to people, watch it, learn it. You have to be part of that football club, and that's what I really love. Just seeing it day to day, the football club, seeing the stewards, you just know and chat to them and things like that. That's what I really love. I don't want to go to Arsenal one week, you know, Liverpool the next. Wonderful stadiums, great. I've been there before though. You know, I just love the fact that you know the players, the fact they'll speak to you for books and things that you know, and give you the time of day. I just like that local link. I really do. Plus, I love living in the area. My family live in the area. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I mean, you know, that's what I really love about my job, and not many people have that in their jobs in terms of reporting.
That's a resounding no, then.
Sorry?
A resounding no.
No, I just love it. You know, it's more and more difficult in local journalism these days. Local journalists are getting chopped left, right, and centre. The Sunday Daily Echo don't even have a sports reporter in their building. It's done by 2 lads that work in Bournemouth. Brighton are down. Fleetwood don't have anyone following them. Barrow doesn't have anyone following them. Sports reporters are dying. You know, we turn out a hell of a lot of copy at the news, and people don't always like it, but compare it to other papers, and well, we've got far more exceed them.
That leads me nicely on to the last question.
Oh, okay.
I mean, to talk to a reporter, we can't leave out Mike Neeson, who we always joke with you about, that he used to do the cricket in the morning, the football in the afternoon, and the hockey in the evening. I don't think it quite worked out like that, but it's a nice story. Is 5 pages too much in the news to cover Pompey? Do people want to read that much?
5 pages?
Is it 5 pages, 4 pages?
Well, how it is in the modern day, we have to each write 4 stories a day on Pompey. Now, to put that into context, sometimes when I go in the archives, in days before Mark's story, you might get 1 story on Pompey. Sometimes you get back page leads on how England are doing in the cricket. We would never do that. No. We wouldn't have a back page lead on England doing the cricket with a generic PA story. So easily looking at least 12 stories a day on our website. We have to keep the website going, news stories, whichever way you can. And some stories aren't to people's tastes. I've seen people criticising stories saying no one's interested, and it's been the most read story of the week because we get analytics. You know, I've had stories that have won me awards not read by too many people. You know, but you still keep churning out the stories, don't you? And I believe our coverage is comprehensive, it's honest, it's forthright, and hopefully we give people a fascinating insight into the football club and what's going on, because many of us have lived this football club. Me and Jordan, between us, you're talking about nearly 40 years. We've been covering this football club. Mark McMahon, my sports editor, has been here probably 12 years. You know, so we've got that local knowledge, that local link. Papa Bouba Diop passes away, unfortunately. You know, you used to give Harry Redknapp a ring for a chat and things like that, and we've got that. That's the local link with the football club, and we're very, very fortunate, and we absolutely love our job. Really, when lockdown was here and you couldn't watch games, it was horrible, because I've spent 25 years of my life, more longer than that, just Saturdays watching football matches. You know, working 25 years, obviously before that, watching. And when you don't have Saturdays, what do you do? I went for walks with the family.
God forbid.
That's what I did. I've discovered all these sites, all these places around Waterloo that I haven't never seen before. But you're there for the football, aren't you? And the football matches. And people will say, "Oh, it's a long way to drive." It doesn't matter. It's just fantastic watching football matches away from home, and you get used to it.
Well, keep up the good work. Fascinating to talk to you.
Cheers, thanks, Johnny.
Thanks,
Cheers.
mate.